throughout the book. One of the biggest reasons why he makes it that way is because he didn't publish the book until maybe about 6 or 7 years after the deaths actually happened. He had to wait till after the executions of Dick and Perry for him to actually publish the book. So he had, a lot of people actually already knew about this situation in the Clutters. It was already in the newspaper and in the news, and because Truman Capote was so famous himself, the limelight had brought attention to it. He was doing something no one has ever done, and it was making a nonfiction novel. One of the components of his nonfiction novel that helped him build a mystery is the fact that he had stylistic choices in making, he had stylistic choices in giving you certain information. He didn't give you the information about the older Clutter sisters because it just wasn't going to help with his book. But he did give you deep information into Perry's life with his childhood. And he even gave you different narrations with Barbara's letters and the investigators, narration throughout the book. And he even put a theme in there to make it a novel instead of a nonfiction to interest the characters. Because you would already know that, hey, the Clutters die at the end, Dick and Perry did it, but you don't know all the details of it. He doesn't give you all the details in the first part. In the first part, he goes through a time shift, in which he skips the murders. He starts out with a normal day in the Clutter home, and then he goes to pretty much the getaway of Dick and Perry. And he also does this thing where he flips between the investigators and Dick and Perry and their getaway. You have to follow Dick and Perry through their trip to Mexico and Miami and Las Vegas, and you have to follow them through this trip. And you're having to figure out why they did this. Who are these people to kill these people like the way they did? And how could someone get away with murdering a whole family? And then you have the investigator side where you're following them throughout the journey of following Dick and Perry. You even go through them finding the license plate for the car that they stole, and finding the hot checks in Kansas, which allows you to follow the narration to give you clues to put this big piece together. You don't get the final pieces until you get to the end, in which he gives you the confession. He puts all the pieces together of the book. It is not until the end, in the conclusion, where you find out that one of the reasons why that the family had to die was because Dick was a pedophile. You don't find that out, and one of the reasons is because Dick was so ashamed of that. And he used it at the end of the book for you to be able to put all the clues together. You only find it throughout the journey when he's in Mexico that he does like little girls. And then you have Perry, in which he has, even though he was biased towards Perry because of his same background, you have the molestation of the reason why it was so gruesome in the murders, and why the people looked at them as they did. He had to make sure that this was going to be an interesting book for people to read because everyone already knew the end. So he made you put these pieces together by using time shifts and themes and setting changes and time shifts, and he used this stylistically, and he did a very good job at it because he was one of the first people to make the nonfiction novel. One of the themes that he did use was the snakes in the beginning and the orchard of the Clutter home. And by the end of the book, you are able to put all the pieces together to see the bigger picture, even if you've never heard of them, even if you've never heard of the murders before. And that's all I have to say.
That is such a cool puzzle. Are you going to let us put that up on the wall in my room and have it for future attached to it that you.
You can have it.
You're such a. Yay! Okay, we must ask questions because we're at 5 minutes. So let's help Camri out with questions.
Please.
So, what do you think was the biggest theme in the novel that contributed to the puzzle idea? Like,
Definitely during the beginning, I think it would be good versus evil, especially when he's like creeping up and they have the snakes, and then you see this family as the all-American girl and the straight-A student and the guy that was loved by everyone. It was a really big theme throughout the whole book, which was the good versus evil, because he made you like the Clutters at the beginning. He gave you he gave you multiple reasons on why to love the Clutters, and then they pretty much took it from the world by this evil, and that which he kind of described Dick and Harry, because he makes Dick seem very nonchalant and very almost psychopathic by the way he just didn't care, especially at the end and in the confessions when Dick was pretty really nonchalant and he had the whole story planned out and Perry just said nothing, and it kind of shows you the characterization, I guess, of each of the characters and how it plays into that major theme.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you
No. You go.
Okay.
Go. I'll finish this off.
okay, so I have two questions. The first one would be, when you did your analysis, and did you really think, so you said at the beginning, and you talked about the Clutters, and they were nice people, and they were taken from the world by this evil. Do you really think that they were good people, or do you just think that's kind of how they were painted to be? Like, if you met them in real life, like, do you think they would really be like that?
I think that Capote made sure of that, but who knows who they really were? Who knows? Unless you actually knew them. I believe that they probably were good people, but I won't believe it was the way that Capote made them seem like. They even made them seem like almost like godlike the way they were talking about him, because they were talking about him in such a good light. So I think they were just decent people, but I don't think they were maybe like up there.
Right. And then, then would you agree with Ben's statement about how it was, like, he was political in the end?
When he with his IOP, it actually all makes sense why my IOP is the way it is, because he chose these reasons because he had over 8,000 pages of notes, and he had so much information, like 5-6 years of nothing but investigating and talking to people. He chose this for a reason. He chose these statements and how to look at Perry and to look at the Clutters in a certain way because he wanted you to see something.
So then, do you think that he's more interested? Do you think he's more interested in Perry rather than like the murder itself?
Alright, yeah. He's very biased. I didn't want to put that too much into it, but yeah, I think he's very biased towards Perry just because of the fact that he also talked to him a lot.
Can you explain to everyone, because I think everybody's interested in how you made the photo into a puzzle?
Oh, okay, what I did, right?
Seen it on Pinterest?
Okay, so what I did is I just printed out a regular piece of paper and then I got it to blow up a little bit. I took a big poster board that has foam, and I had 3 copies of this paper right here. So I took like a puzzle template and I cut out these shapes from the puzzle template, and then I kind of like, what do they call it? Like overdrew on this paper, I guess you could say, and then I took in like an X-Acto knife and I pretty much cut out the border and the puzzle pieces, and I just used stick glue, a piece of paper, and a knife, pretty much. It took a lot of time, but I got it done.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think his Capote's bias towards Perry was actually a bad thing?
I don't think it was a bad thing because I think it had a lot to do with everything, especially with the death penalty and how the getting into the head of a murderer and making points of, and just making a point of like the murder and why it happened and how it happened, and to show like people that it does happen and that not everyone is a bad person, I guess you can say. And then again, it could be a bias because then you have so much of the book focused on Perry when it could be focused on someone else. I think it was like half and half.
Good job. Okay, we're at 10 minutes, so yay. That was